KMET News, Sports, and Scholar Quiz at 6 a.m. More at 7 with the updated Safe at 6:11 and 1/2. I'm Ace Young. We're KMET, informing Southern California, now rocking the Southland. Finally, on Friday, we welcome in the hit music of Jeff Gonzer.
I'm not ready, and I have no hit music. Dusty had a dirty magazine here. I was staring at the cover. 6:11. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, it's Aces.
Huh?
Paraquat.
That's not mine.
KMET.
Over bridge of sighs, to rest my eyes in shades of green, under dreaming skies.
I think we have a surprise guest on the line.
Already? We haven't even started yet.
Hold on.
Ask.
Ace!
How about that? I say a one-syllable word, and you know who it is.
I would have recognized your voice if you sneezed. Are you kidding?
Just for folks out there, Basque kind of predates Dude by a couple of decades, right?
Well, you had always weird personal ways of referring to friends, and
Yes.
and somehow Basque was one of yours.
BASQUE.
Yeah.
So,
Interesting. I'm calling from Sheridan, Wyoming, and I'm 10 miles away from Buffalo, Wyoming, which is the Basque capital of America. That's true how strange things are. And meanwhile, Gonzer's going to La Jolla.
I am. Do you believe it? I'm actually going to a Republican place.
so can you guys tell me how you guys originally hooked up at KMET, right? Or do you predate that?
No, it was KMET.
Yeah, he was, Jeff was, before that, he was at KPPC, of course, and then I was in Northern California, so I spent some time at KMPX, which was their kind of sister station, and also KZAP and KSAN, but we're not talking about me, we're talking about Jeff. So we hooked up at KMET, right?
Yeah, but you know what? And this is where you're more than willing to help me with memory here. I think we're going to have to finish each other's sentences.
Okay.
When you first started at KMET was like the earlier days, and then I was fired, but we were still friends. I remember you picking me up. My car broke down, or I needed a service on my BMW, and we both lived in Santa Monica. So Ace dropped me off at KLOS and then went on to KMET to do the morning news with Michael Turner, right?
Yeah, one of those great radio stories. The two morning people, the two arch rival radio stations, but that couldn't keep us apart. But that wasn't,
no, that wasn't.
We were back together again.
No, what happened was that I got. What people don't know is how often we all get fired. I mean, it's just, it almost is, it makes you bulletproof. But I'd gotten fired from KLOS, which is another story we can tell later. And Sam Bellamy really wanted me to do the mornings. She was like crafting this KMET in its what turned out to be its most successful incarnation. And
KMET really needed you, Jeff, because I remember B. Mitchell Reed did mornings for a while. He was real sick. He was doing a show from the hospital, and it was the worst radio in the world.
And they wound up putting him on in middays right after me. But what happened was I was working with Brent Seltzer, but that was just a matter of time before they rehired Ace and created our package. We created the team.
I had a little guilt I gotta talk about right now, Jeff.
What?
And I've always been kind of jealous because you were my Jewish brother I never had. I guess you call it goyim guilt.
Yeah.
Now I live in Wyoming, where the biggest diversity you have is whether you raise black Angus beef or red Angus beef.
Well, being a Mormon, you're not supporting Romney, are you?
I'll say real quietly, no.
Yeah, that's right. You're in Wyoming.
Yeah.
Well, the great thing about not just us working together, but KMET was that so much of the humor and so much of the joy and fun was all spontaneous. It was not like people sat down and scripted out a scenario or even a real plan like that. Most of the great stuff just kind of happened, whether it was you and Paraquat with the fire extinguisher.
Now, I don't know if the term limits have expired on that, so don't talk about that yet.
Okay.
But obviously a lot of it was organic. What are some of the bigger things that came out of that sort of organic feel in the morning?
I think it was the whole package. This was long before the internet and iPods and everything else. People really wanted a dose of music and culture and politics that related to them. It was through KMET, and we were, it sounds weird saying it, but I think we were the pioneers, Jeff. There were others involved, but we were there doing L.A. morning radio. I remember when I first went to work in L.A., KLOS was doing ABC News on the Hour.
Yeah, well, when I worked there, right. It was because it was an ABC O&O, and so counting, that was one of the hardest things I ever had to learn to do, was back time to the top of the hour. Sometimes the weather sometimes I felt like Dr. George Fishbeck. It's like I'm doing like this 3-minute weather because the song ended early.
And meanwhile, we were talking about the Viet Cong and calling them the Liberation Forces and trying to stop nuclear power plants from going online in San Luis Obispo and saving the whales and everything else. And we just had surf reports in the air. All of a sudden, there was radio that related to people.
Well, you were, you took news to a different personal level, and it was in a way that, was very slanted, but was also filling a void because the mainstream media, the regular media, just was not giving attention to Greenpeace and the paraquat problem, and we were relating to the news the way our audience felt about it.
Right now, 94.7, we're KMET Los Angeles. Ace Young, I can't tell you how good I'm feeling. I'm feeling, well, let me just say, I'm so excited I gotta pee. It's finally a Friday, September 1st, 1978. We've survived the weekend, my friends. The week, anyway. The weekend's here. And checking this date in history, it was a new date, 1682. 100 English Quakers, led by William Penn, sailing for America. 1807, a court in Richmond, Virginia, acquitting former Vice President Aaron Burr on charges of treason. And let us not forget September 1st, 1862, liquor rations abolished in the U.S. Navy. No wonder I didn't go in. And on this date in 1945, Japan surrendering aboard the USS Battleship Missouri at the end of World War II. And a thought for the day, the individual who has experienced solitude will not easily become a victim of mass suggestion. Albert Einstein said that. A thought for the day, a look at this day in history. In just a second, the news, the views, the sports and scholar quiz. 6 a.m. news on a Friday, finally a Friday, September 1st, 1978. Cool.
But you know what, Jeff? It was a total package that included the music.
Well, of course it did.
Yeah.
No, it was. One of my favorite stories was when Sam Bellamy was dating a Secret Service guy.
Okay.
Do you remember that?
Right.
And we were like sending people to a protest in front of the Century Plaza Hotel because Reagan was in town.
Right.
And she like calls on the hotline. It's, will you stop this? It's like you're creating this mob scene, this riot. Stop it. It was just, It was so funny that we were that, at one point we were that close to, to making news rather than reporting it.
Now, the other thing you guys put together, and I don't know if this was a station thing or something that organically happened, was the Finally a Friday events.
That was my idea.
That was your idea.
That was my idea, and Ace embraced it. And
I embraced it. It was tough for me. I really enjoyed it, but it was tough because I was taken out of my news environment, and Jeff was, kind of the DJ party guy. It was easier for him than me. But I tell you, it didn't take me too long. You know, your friends are there, and you're indulging table to table, and all of a sudden, good job, Jeff.
Well, no, at first you were actually, in fact, both of us were actually trying to move the studio experience into the nightclub, and it really wasn't working. I had turntables, and I was actually playing the records right there on the stage. And every time people would start dancing or we were moving around, the records were bouncing around. And you're sitting there with a typewriter actually trying to bang out the newscast. And then it kind of evolved where you spent a lot more time in the audience interviewing people. And, and then Les Nessman from WKRP, I forgot the actor's name. You know, I have a picture still of you talking with him, interviewing him on the air, and it just became more of a total party package rather than, it was a unique situation. So it became impossible to really try to recreate the studio experience in front of
It was so unique. They were selling more booze on Friday morning than Friday night.
The waitresses from the country club in Reseda actually would sleep over Thursday night so they could work the Friday morning shift at 6 o'clock because they would make more money in tips than they were in the evening when a band was playing.
8:30 in the morning. What a Friday. Finally a Friday. And this is the best one yet. Give yourselves a hand. You guys are something else. 1 year anniversary of these Finally a Friday meetings of the immoral minority. I have never seen such rampant depravery. Controlled.
Now, there was a memorable Finally a Friday that I is locked into my brain that you guys did from Who Songs.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah.
Now, first of all, that's something that I don't think could happen today with all liability issues and things like that. How did that come about?
And the drug cartels would pretty much keep a caravan of white kids from L.A. driving down through Baja.
I'll take a little credit for that.
I was just going to give you the credit for that.
Jeff embraced it in a hurry.
Or responsibility.
Yeah, exactly. I'd go down there every weekend just to have fun and drink Coronas and go with my surfing buddies, although I didn't surf. And Who Songs was the hangout. And it just made sense. No one had ever done a remote there before. It even no one spoke Spanish at Metro Media Square, which is kind of a strange thing to believe these days in L.A. But so I would call the Mexican telephone company and make arrangements, and we did it, and just barely, but we did it, Jeff.
It was finally a Friday that was so big, it had to move out of the country and be done on Saturday.
Yeah.
Right.
The mayor was there.
The mayor was partying with us.
The local TV station, the UHF station in Ensenada, was doing a simulcast, and of course, half of Southern California was down there because why not?
And we had the Penthouse Playmate. Is that what they were called? The Penthouse Playmates were there?
Penthouse Playmates, yeah.
Which got me in profound trouble, which is something I really don't want to talk about, if you don't mind.
Oh, I'll tell the folks about it.
No, don't. It's still embarrassing.
Yeah. Hey, speaking of embarrassing things, I will share probably the most embarrassing thing I ever saw, Jeff. And Jeff, pay me back for this one, but who's the world's biggest Bruce Springsteen fan?
Well, I'm certainly up there.
And remember when Bruce was at the Roxy?
Yeah.
Live, remote. Talk about a coup over KLOS, broadcasting Bruce Springsteen live from the Roxy. And Jeff, we were there sitting next to Bruce's mom and dad.
We were in front of them, yeah.
Yeah, and you spilled a drink on Bruce's mom.
It's funny. I don't remember that, but I'm really glad that that's something that I blocked out of my mind.
Well, you tucked that one way away.
Really? I did? Was it his mother or his sister? I remember his sister was there, too.
I always thought it was his mom.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. Anyway, fun times. Couldn't be better. And I guess the only thing I don't regret them because we lived them, and you know what? They can never be repeated. That radio doesn't exist anymore. People have too many choices, and it was fun to be a couple of folks participating during the heyday, and that was the heyday.
Yeah, and when in 2009 in July, a couple of 3 years ago, when we were able to do that day on the Sound, that was a lot of fun. We really were able to bring back some of the memories, and I hate looking back, and I hate the past as much as I would rather always look forward. But we were able to pull that off as well, and I think the audience was there with us, and it was a lot of fun.
That was pretty special. That was something you were pitching to those guys for, I know, at least a year before it happened.
Well, no, actually, Dave Beasing brought it up to me, and I told him that everybody's memory of KMET and that time in their lives were all different, and that anything we did would fall short for somebody because memories are personal and specific. And he said no, and I started, and then I started working there, and just kind of took over. And the more stuff I collected, and I actually produced the whole thing and kind of organized everything, and it wound up being not only a lot of fun, it was cathartic. It just wound up really working.
Renegade rock and roll radio station KMET was back on the air 22 years after it finished its final broadcast in 1987.
Oh, some things just never change.
I'll tell you.
Some things do change. You're getting the time off my BlackBerry screen.
Yeah,
Well, I remember getting phone calls from you months ahead of time. This might happen, Ace. This might happen. And we got closer, and guess what had happened? And correct me if I'm wrong, those were the highest ratings that that radio station has ever received.
Oh, probably. It's probably, and well, I'm not going to go into it. I promised myself I wouldn't be bitter about anything today. I wasn't going. Wasn't going to be bitter, angry, or pissed.
Well, Ace, I want to thank you for surprising Jeff on this occasion, and.
Let me just say this.
Okay.
It's too neat. It's a treat. It makes me want to stamp my feet. Buy it in the street. Make sure it ain't cut with manite.
Okay.
Beautiful.
Can you believe we walked around with Coke spoon necklaces and stuff? Man, I can't believe that stuff.
Well, worse, we walked around with Coke. I mean, the spoons are one thing.
Before I let Ace go, there was a famous room next to the control room.
Sure.
That was used for that sort of thing. How much did the morning show use that room?
More, probably we'd still be on the air today if we didn't go in there as much as we did.
It got so loose. I was too busy, so I just smoke in the newsroom, knowing that Genevieve Merzlak in HR was like 20 feet away. We were the stars. What can I say?
No, we smoked a joint or a bowl usually after the 6 o'clock newscast.
I only asked that is because you guys ran a really pretty tight radio show, and
that's your memory.
Yeah, well, it could be, and to have gone in that room any number of times, obviously that would affect.
Well,
the
it was so
sound.
early in the morning, we didn't need to go in the room. We just stayed in the studio.
Yeah, and I'll say this: to me, there's nothing debilitating about marijuana.
Yeah, I have my license. I have my medical marijuana. It helps.
So for those that don't know what you're doing these days, Ace, you're working in Wyoming.
Because I Sheridan, Wyoming, at the foothill of the Bighorn Mountains. It's beautiful here. Like I said, I miss the cultural diversity and all the wonderful folks in SoCal, but it's wonderful. I enjoy it. I'm the PR hack for a large nonprofit in Wyoming that provides vital services for people with developmental disabilities. And as far as a rewarding job, I put it right up there next to KMET. Maybe not quite as much fun at times, but it's great, and life is good.
And you'll come visit me in San Diego?
Yeah. La Jolla.
La Jolla.
La Jolla.
That's why I'm moving there to La Jolla.
It's a treat, Jeff. It really is, and you've had quite a career, and thank you for sharing it with me.
Well,
you've certainly been an important part of my life.
yeah, and I can't tell you how much this means having you there. I mean, it's just so cool to hear from you, and we gotta stay more in touch. You know, because years go by, but it really doesn't seem to matter much when you're really a friend of somebody's. You know, you know their soul, you know their being, you know who they are. And so you'll come visit me when it's like 14 below and you've got snow past your ass. You'll come to San Diego and we'll go smoke a joint in front of Mitt Romney's house.
Yeah, right. The Western White House or something.
No, not at all. He's going to be spending a lot of time there because he's going to be out of a gig. You know?
There you go.
From my mouth to the voters' ears, huh?
All right. Thanks again.
Thanks, Ace.
All right, Ace. Talk to you later, man.
Very much appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Well, you guys.
How'd you like that?
Better Ace than my first wife. Thank you.
We didn't have your first wife's number.
Good.
Better a rock and roll fantasy. What if you fantasized being a chicken farmer, you know? Then it gets a little dirty. But rock and roll fantasies, somehow you can make out better. Kinks, rock and roll fantasy. From KMET, from the Misfits album, Kansas, doing What's on My Mind. Practically nothing at 6:22 in the morning. And the Small Faces, going back about 9 or 10 million years. What was that, 65, 66? Yeah. Itchy Coo Park from the Small Faces, Steve Marriott and the gang. Highs today and tomorrow around 85 degrees. It looks like for a September 1st today. Looks like for a Labor Day weekend, it's going to be good. Hazy sunshine, some late night and early morning low cloudiness. Otherwise, temperatures today in the city around 84 degrees.
Say hello to Richard Wagner.
Hi, Richard. How are you again?
He writes.
I know.
You probably.
I read, I write, I know.
You remember him from the Sound.
Of course.
Do you remember at the Gino interview that I mentioned the guy who came out to UCLA to give the speech and talked about how the drugs are so much better at KMET than KLOS? That was Ace Young.
Really?
That was his big speech to the young broadcasters of KLA.
Yeah, really. That was just to screw them, you know.
Yeah.
Not only are we more fun to listen to, but our drugs are better than theirs.
Well, Ace is doing some wonderful things up in Wyoming.
He's
got a bunch of YouTube videos that you can see Ace in, doing local stuff, and it looks like he's having a ball up there. Actually, have you been up to visit him?
I certainly have not. I haven't seen him since the Sound, since he left L.A. after. You know, we arranged for him to come down for the Sound Day,
right.
For the KMET Day.
Well, what we're going to do now, I wanted to start with that and just sort of give you a little bit of a surprise.
That was cool.
What we want to do is do a career-spanning look at your life.
I'm going to need to remember things now.
Well, yeah, we'll
make them up. However.
Yeah,
one or the other. But let's go all the way back. Where did you grow up, and where were you born? And
well, just real briefly, I was born in Jersey. My father was transferred when I was in high school, so we moved to L.A. 1964, and I graduated Hamilton High School in West L.A. And went to Santa Monica College, and then Cal State L.A., where I majored in staying out of Vietnam. You know, whatever
did then,
whatever
right?
it took, whatever it took to avoid going into the Army. That was what I did. But I started working at the local radio station at the college, which was a closed circuit affair. I don't know if they have a frequency now or not. Cal State LA was just always like at the student union and in the dorms. That was pretty much it. But it was a chance for me to sit behind a mic with a couple of turntables. And the format was mostly top 40, but I talked the guy who was running it into letting me do an underground, because I was like a big fan of KPPCs.
Gotcha.
And that's really where I wanted to work, and that's what I wanted to do. So I started doing that kind of a show, an underground radio show. I just brought in my own records, and I did that. And then in a sociology class, a term paper was the sociological, this is like really like college stuff, the sociological significance of the Rolling Stones and the Mothers of Invention, and are they influencing society or society influencing them? And I did a radio show playing music and quoting sources and used that as the term paper. I turned in an audio term paper on reel to reel.
Wow.
And got an A and wound up using that as my first audition tape to get my first part-time job, fill-in and weekends at KPPC, which goes back to 1969. So
you started at KPPC in 1969.
$2 an hour. Yes.
$2 an hour. Let's go back just a touch before that. What inspired you to even be interested in radio? Was it music? It was music first, I assume.
No, I loved radio from the time I was really little. And I know it sounds ridiculous when I tell people because I remember it so clearly still. I was 3 years old. I was going for my tonsils to be removed. And I was just like freaking out. It doesn't matter whether you're 3 or 30, you're going in for an operation. And my father was a big fan of Clavin and Finch, which was a great morning team in New York. And he said, listen to these guys. They're funny. And they took my mind off of my fears. And I just remember telling myself, this is what I'd like to do this because, it's fun and it's serving a purpose. You could actually help people. And I also enjoyed it. And I always felt, I told Robert Klein this years ago at the Troubadour, that I didn't have the guts to do stand-up, and I really couldn't play a musical instrument. So the best thing yet, the best alternative was to be on the radio, where I could be funny when I wanted to without having to do like an hour or 2 hours worth of humor.
Right.
And I could play music because I loved it rather than having to create it, which I really couldn't do. So it just kind of all meshed together. I was just obsessed with radio. Most of us who love radio were. I mean, I used to lay in bed at night in New Jersey when I was a little kid trying to see how far I could pull them in. Wow, Wheeling, West Virginia. Wow, listen to that. It's coming from Pittsburgh, whatever, laying in New Jersey as a kid.
So it's not just me being weird. Other people are like that.
No,
too.
we were all that way. I mean, I bought my first FM radio in, I think, about 1961. It was like there was nothing you could listen to other than simulcasting of AM stations. But I'd heard about FM radio and the sound quality. And I sat there with this little table radio.
So music didn't really play that big a part in your love for radio then?
Not originally. I always loved music. Hated top 40, always hated top 40 music. And I was a kid who listened to KMPC when I first came out here. The first person I visited, I don't know, did you visit disc jockeys and people you really like?
A little bit when I was a little bit older, but by the time I was able to do it and get to the station, so many of them had kind of locked themselves up so you couldn't see the guys.
Yeah, I went to visit Bob Crane because I decided Bob Crane was my morning man when I first got here. I had to choose a morning man and a morning show to love.
Of course.
And Bob Crane became the guy. And they let me stand in the with the engineer on the other side of the glass, and he waved and it was very nice. I think mentioned me on the air, but I stood there and watched Bob Crane in action, and then they gave me a whole bunch of commercial transcriptions so I could go home and do fake radios, like in my house, on my tape recorder.
Did you just show up, or did you call, or what?
No, I made an appointment.
All right.
Yeah. No, if you show up, they call the police. No, I called up and I love radio. I Clavin and Finch. I want to be a disc jockey. I'm in high school, Hamilton High School, and I'd love to Other guys were getting late. I was like going to visit Bob Gray.
That sounds like a familiar radio story, if there ever was one.
Yeah, exactly.
So then in '69, we'll go back up to KPPC. So that was the first radio gig per se.
Yeah, I worked with, I became friends with the overnight guy, Zach Zenor, who some people remember very well. I have no idea where he is. I haven't talked to him in 100 years. But Zach did the overnights, and the overnights, I think, were like 6 hours every night. And I used to hang out with Zach, and Zach would take a little rest in the middle of the night and and so I volunteered to do like an hour. So we'd wait until it was like really nobody was listening, like 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock. And I would do an hour. So I actually, and I don't even think I said anything, but it just gave me a chance to learn how to spin records and segue and just, like get the feeling of being on the radio. And then I did some weekend work, and there's some great stories from KPPC in those days. There was a show on Sundays called Rawhide and Roses, and Linda Ronstadt was one of the guests who always came on. It was kind of like country-tinged rock and roll. And Linda had such a filthy mouth on her that they banned her from the studio. But came Woodstock in August of 1969, and somebody who became very close friends of mine, David Pierce and his wife Kate and their kids, the Pierce family. They were on, and they later were there with me when KPPC was a bigger deal. Had become really popular in around 1970. But so they were going to Woodstock. So David wrote me a check for the week to fill in for him. And I did, that was my first full week on the air in the middle of the afternoon. So Woodstock was important to me because I didn't go, because I got to be on the radio.
Right.
And Joe Cocker had been brought in from A&M Records. He had just put out the first album, and he performed at Woodstock. So I don't know if this was right before or right after. But the promo person brought him in and said, do you want to do an interview? And I went, sure. So I remember he was like kind of wandering around staring at all the records with his mouth open because, we had this enormous studio and this wall of records that was just, unparalleled. And so my first interview was Joe Cocker, like his first American tour. Things were so much looser then.
Now, who else that we might know was at KPPC at the time that you started over there? Any other names you can recall?
Well, it was after the big days of KPPC when there was a big strike. The first group with Tom Donahue and B. Mitchell Reed, they all left and went to KMET. So KPPC was basically back in the shadows using people that were not so well known.
Gotcha.
And which is why I was able to get a job doing weekends. And then I left there after not very long, like maybe 6 months, and I got my first full-time job at KYMS in Orange County.
Right.
And that was kind of like it was just right down the dial. Instead of 106.7, it was 106.3, I believe. And it was owned by the same company that owned KPRI in San Diego. And I started doing my first full-time job was there.
Yeah, and they were an underground station as well.
Yeah,
at the time.
we were in Santa Ana.
Tower's still there, right by the freeway.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And it was we were in a building owned by a dentist, and we'd play like really loud music, and the dentist would come into the studio and yell at us that we were bothering his patients, or cranking Led Zeppelin. It was just like a scene out of WKRP or something. And it was a Japanese, turn down the radio, turn down the music. He started yelling at us.
So you were there how long?
Not very long. It was about 6 months. And then I got the call that KPPC got a power increase, because at that point the tower was kind of like on top of the church or something, and it was lower than the average terrain in Southern California, so it was impossible to pick up anywhere pretty much out of Pasadena. And they put it on the tower on the Flint Peak, and Les Carter, who passed away quite some time ago, was part of the original staff. He came in as program director, and he was building a staff. And they hired me to do mornings. And that's when they brought in Steven Seagal, the obscene Stephen Clean, who was really just an amazing, brilliant, talented person. And Ted Alvey, who had been working with Beamer, who just recently passed away. Ted was working at the station, and then Dr. Demento would come in as Barry Hansen to play Weird Records with Steven at night, and Steven gave him his name. They wound up giving him his own show, and became Dr. Pimento Demento, and then dropped the Pimento. And it just went on like that. We had some Joel Siegel, who also passed away, who was big from moved to New York to do local entertainment news in New York, and then became on Good Morning America, became like one of their main movie critics. Right. Joel was a friend of mine who lived down the street in Laurel Canyon and worked for an advertising agency and had this tremendous collection of old radio shows. So he also was a very close friend with Harry Shearer. I think they went to college together, to UCLA. And so we talked Joel into doing a Saturday and a Sunday show where he played old radio shows. It was like it was Uncle Joel's Comedy Hour on Saturday, and he played comedy shows like Burns and Allen and Jack Benny, and then Dr. Noel's Radio Theater, where he played like spooky stuff on Sundays. And then Joel started doing the news at KMET when we all got fired. And that's when somebody from New York heard him on the news on KMET and brought him out to do an audition. He wound up going to New York.
Wow.
And then the Credibility Gap was our news department, which was incredible. It was Harry Shearer and Michael McKeon and David Lander.
Right.
And they all went on to have like tremendous careers.
So they started at KPPC and then went over to KRLA, I guess.
KRLA first.
Oh, first.
Yeah, it was first, and it was a little different. There were different people. There were some other people involved in it, and then it just kind of like KRLA, I think, started getting too structured, and then so they all came over to KPPC, where they created a newscast, one newscast every day, which we repeated several times.
Right. And then, according to my records, you went from there to KMET in 71?
Yes.
Just for a year, right? How did that work?
To 72. Yeah. Well, we all got fired from KPPC. The story is interestingly documented in the movie FM, what happened. Although they used KMET characters for this story, it really was the story of KPPC, where the general manager just didn't like the insurrection that we had created, but also the success. So he, and we had heard that we were getting fired, and I did a little investigating and found out that some people who were named as coming up to KPPC, I called them at their stations where they used to be, and I was told that, no, he's not here anymore. He's gone to L.A. to be on the radio, and that was a confirmation. So we went on the air and did like this marathon for a weekend saying, we don't know if it's true, but we understand we're all getting fired, and we're just looking, for your support. And we got tremendous support, and all the record company people brought platters. It was like a bar mitzvah, It's like we had all these platters of food, and they just everybody was coming by and offering their best wishes, and rock and roll stars and Little Feat and Bonnie Raitt and just all these people, and on Sunday night, the power went off, and the GM came in with the chief engineer and the Pasadena police and told us we were all trespassing and that we were all fired except for this one guy. And we all left. We're all escorted out of the building, and that was that. And we stayed together as a group for several months, and we were on KPFK. We raised money for KPFK as KPPC in exile. And we did a benefit for our legal fund at the old Ash Grove, which is, on Melrose, which was comedy whatever now. And we were all set to go on the FM frequency of KGB, which was the store station on AM, but they had like FM, they were still simulcasting, and they couldn't any longer. And we were going to take over, basically bring our own sales staff, own programming staff, and basically pay them a percentage of what we made, and we were all going to share in the profits. And George B. Store in Miami, this went by his desk. This was at the very last minute. It's like escrow, like escrow falling through the day before closing. We were celebrating champagne, excitement.
Right.
And he said, "I don't want a hippie radio station on my frequency," and he canceled the deal. And that's when I went. They had been after me to go to work at KMET, and that's when I took the job. I called Richard Kimball back, and I said, "Richard, I'll take the job."
Now, you were there for a year before you went to KLOS?
Yeah.
And who was on the staff at that point at KMET? Do you remember?
Well, it was...
Was Beamer there?
I don't think so. He might have been. It's funny that you asked me that. I think he may have been doing middays at that point. And because they brought in Stephen... They hired me, and they hired Stephen to do afternoons. And a guy named Nat Ash from New York was the general manager. And he used to invite everybody into his office at 4 o'clock to drink. And unfortunately, that was about the tone of the radio station. So they brought David Moorhead in from Cleveland. And David had people, Michael Hunter and other people who he wanted to work there. So that's when they let me go, and I was immediately hired at KLOS. Those were in the days when you get hired in weeks or days.
Right.
It's like selling your house. We were talking about selling my house.
And then at KLOS, you were there for 4 years.
4 years. Boy, you really did your homework, didn't you?
Well, the internet's a wonderful thing.
Well, but more importantly, it's truthful. It could be lying.
Well, props to Don Barrett. I took it from his. His column.
Don, I love you.
Yeah, we love Don Barrett. So KLOS must have been sort of a different experience than what you were used to prior.
Yeah, it was. But again, the bottom line is you got car payments. You got to make your mortgage payment, and it was good. It was good. It was also frustrating. I promised myself I wasn't going to rag on people when we did this, so I won't. But it was not the greatest broadcast experience of my life. There was internal issues that I was not pleased with.
These were corporate, I would guess.
No, this was with the program director.
Okay. Okay.
We didn't get along all that well. And it was a cultural thing. I, at that point, was a macrobiotic, didn't drink or get high or party. I was pretty, it's like things that are now considered normal when it comes to food health and understanding of what you should be eating in order to make yourself a healthy person. Interestingly enough, in 1972 was all kind of like voodoo stuff. People didn't really believe a lot of what you were saying. And I didn't try to proselytize as much as I that's just who I was. So I didn't fit in on that level.
Now, when you were there, Jim Ladd was there, if I'm not mistaken?
Jim was there.
Jerry Longden, was he there?
Jerry Longden was there for a while, yes.
And who else was there?
Damien.
Damien was there at that point?
J.J. Jackson. It was a great staff.
Yeah, and at that time, they also had news as well, right? And
Yeah.
was Marshall Phillips there at the time?
Marshall Phillips was there. I worked with... I knew, as I'm talking, I'm thinking, I'm cranking up names in my head. So, David Heller, who was David Heller and I worked together together first, and David moved on to San Francisco for an abortive FM all news station. It was like, David, don't do it, but he went to San Francisco, and that didn't work out for him. But yeah, then I worked with Marshall.
You worked on KLOS till 76?
Yeah, they Tom Yates fired me because he wanted to do more of an all-music morning show. So I was out of work. And that's an interesting story that I'll tell you. So I started talking with Sam about coming to work at KMET, but Beamer was doing mornings, and David Moorhead didn't want to screw around with Mitchell, and Rachel Donahue was doing middays. But there was some friction, I think, between Sam and Rachel, or Rachel and David. Whatever. So it was like weeks of going back and forth, and there was no way of making the opening, and it was just kind of frustrating. And I decided that I needed to file for unemployment. So those were the days when you couldn't do it online because there was no online. So I went down to the Hollywood unemployment office, and I filled out all the paperwork. And as I get home, the phone's ringing. Of course, there were no cell phones. So you run into the house and you hear the phone ringing. I don't even think there were answering machines in those days. So it's like I leaped on the phone, and it's like, I was out of breath. It's like, Jeff, it's Sam. And I went, Sam, I'm sorry I'm out of breath. I just came back from the unemployment office. Fuck the unemployment office. You're hired. Get your ass down here right now. So Rachel.
It's too bad the call didn't come before you had to endure the unemployment office, right?
That's all right. Yeah. So Rachel had resigned on a matchbook. She had actually written her resignation on a matchbook and left it on David Moorhead's desk. So then Mitchell was moved to middays, and then they could hire me.
Isn't that so Rachel, though?
Yeah.
Isn't that so Rachel?
At least then, yeah.
I think maybe even now.
Yeah, really?
Yeah, from what I've heard.
Ace and Rachel, I don't know if she's still with him in Sheraton. We didn't talk about that because that wasn't what the conversation was about. But I know that she was there for a while in Wyoming.
I think she's somewhere in that area.
Yeah.
So, okay, so you get hired at KMET, and that was the beginning of the long run.
I always felt that I was the missing puzzle piece in that equation. I was like the last stretch of the railroad in order to connect, the continent, because the staff was pretty much set. And actually it was me, and then when they brought in Ace to work with me. And that's when KMET started the momentum. That's when we started building and growing. And then they cut a deal. Howard Bloom, God rest his soul, who was the sales manager at the time, cut a deal for us to have our name on all of the concerts. And because newspapers, with all due respect to you, because that was like really the only medium of communication, you waited on Sundays to see the in the calendar section.
That was big.
Full ads. KMET presents, Aerosmith. Yeah, so it's like, so suddenly our credibility started growing. There was really a lot of things that all came together.
9:21 in the morning. My bro, Ace Young, is lunch.
Yes, Mr. Gonzer. Here we be in the audience once again. It's finally Friday. And hey, Jesus, somebody had their hand. Easy. Anyway, we're having a great time. Easy. And we got this beautiful lady here. And hi, what's your name?
Hi, I'm Sharon.
Sharon, where are you from?
Great, from Canoga Park.
Ah, Sharon. Now listen, you got to back up a little, you guys, because I want you all to see Sharon. What do you think of Sharon here?
Well, I used to work here at Ace, but they fired me, you know?
Jesus. She's got a great outfit on.
Oh, yeah, you like that? I wore it just for you, honey.
Oh, jeez. So you having a good time?
I sure am. Hoo-yah! Hoo-yah!
I hear there's another request, though. You girls, of course, are in the wet T-shirt contest, but I understand you won a wet boxer short contest.
Oh, yeah, that's what I heard, too.
Jesus. Anyway, I would like you to read a public service announcement for us and see how you do in the radio, okay?
KMET reminds you of half of our adults drown each year under the influence of alcohol. Stay out of the... Okay, take off, babe. Stay out of the water if you have been drinking.
All right, now, words to the wise on an April Fool's Day. Jeff, this crowd is rowdy, and they're going to get rowdier still. We have more at Flo and Hetty. We have the wet T-shirt contest. I don't know about the wet boxer contest, but KMET rocks Southern California.
We were looser. We were playing the music that people wanted to hear at the time. Then the whole social phenomena that was created that could not happen at an ABC because of the corporate structure. Even though Metro Media was a pretty big corporation, I think we were far enough away from New York where they didn't really know what was going on, except they saw the balance sheet and things were looking really good. So they just kind of like left us alone.
And they were probably happy about that because back then even FM still wasn't a big deal yet.
Wasn't a big deal. And then at one point we became the most profitable station in the Metro Media chain, which was the largest independent radio group at the time. And that's when things started getting ugly, when there was a dip, when the ratings started going in the wrong direction. As happens with anything, you know, you don't ride on top forever. They started strangling the goose that laid the golden egg, and they, with the consultants started coming in, and then people started getting fired, and then, you know, everybody had an answer, and then people from the East Coast, from Philadelphia, were going to impose Philadelphia radio on us when we certainly had, when the whole idea was retapping into the culture. And, you know, we made some bad musical choices and started playing. And for heavy metal fans, I apologize, but that really was not the way to go.
Right.
The way to go was what K-Rock was doing, and we could have done it first, but we didn't. So we lost that hipness mantle to K-Rock, and then hence the the ascension of K-Rock.
Now let's talk about the lineup at KMET. When you first started, you were doing mornings, and Beamer was middays at that point, or
yes.
And then
Bob Coburn was in the afternoon.
Bob Coburn was in the afternoon,
and Mary Turner and Jim Ladd. Pretty good lineup.
You might say so. And then Beamer, was he let go, or how did he end up over at KLOS? He ended up at KLOS at some point.
He eventually,
or was he just sick?
Retired, was let go, and David could not fire him without finding a job for him. So they actually traded him to KLOS for an intern to be named later.
Right, which was Cynthia Fox. Did she end up?
Cynthia wound up getting the job. Cynthia was, and look at Cynthia's history, you know, on the radio. She, of all the survivors, it's like Cynthia's the last woman standing.
So at that point, it was you in the morning, you and Ace?
Well, for a while, you know, I'm trying to remember the history now, but for a while, Billy Jugs did, you know, did middays as well.
Yeah.
And then Bob left to be the program director of WMET in Chicago. And Jack Snyder, I think, took over the afternoons.
Right.
David Perry wound up doing afternoons for a while. And, then somewhere along the line, Pat Paraquat came in to do news in the afternoon and then, did the famous fish report with Mary in the evening.
Right.
Listen, it's time for me to pull my old rod.
Oh, yeah, let's go fishing. Come on.
You want to see it? Huh?
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
How do you like it so far?
Ooh.
Huh?
Gag
Huh?
me with a...
Ooh. Marina Dildo, 23 anglers now for the fish friends. 98 amuck running lizard cod, 45 rural underwear smelt, 83 whammy clam lickers, 54 glibgar beltless tuna, 56 quasi comatose cunningling cod, and 7 woolen wad shooters. Whoa.
Oh, well, Lake Titicaca has 16 walleyed wanker wango tango tuna, 31 touch me, see me, feel me, flirtatious fluff flounder, 87 sick but scintillating stripogram grommet, and 12 deviated septum sphincter sharks.
But when Mary decided that she didn't want to be in radio anymore, it was really, that really, the structure when that started falling apart. Because it was basically me and Ace and Mary and Jim were really, at that point, the pillars as far as the announcing staff, as far as the disc jockeys went. So and with Ace and Paraquat. So you had the 5 of us, and then things started falling apart, and then Ace wound up leaving for whatever reason, and then they put Paraquat in the morning with me, and then I left. The handwriting was on the wall, and I just thought, I'd rather leave rather than being shown the door. So Ted Turner was doing, I don't know if you have that in your notes, Ted Turner was doing this cable music channel, which was his answer to MTV. It was, I believe, 1983. And I had a manager at the time who worked very hard to get me to this brand new project. The studio was in Hollywood. It was originally not going to be, it was going to be music videos, but the disc jockeys were going to be voiceover, but we were going to be personalities. The guy who was running it for Turner grew up listening to me, so he was really excited about having me on the staff. So anyway, I cut a deal where I made this transition, and I resent Michael Harrison. Mike was the program director at the time.
Yeah, if I can stop you right there.
All right.
When did that change happen? Because Sam Bellamy was given credit for basically building that beautiful staff.
And she should have. It's true. And the sound and the attitude and just the controlled anarchy.
So when did Sam go away, and how did that happen? Because there are some conflicting stories about that.
Well, what are your conflicting stories?
Nowadays Mike Harrison seems to take credit for all of
the Mike Harrison thing. It's funny because I'm actually friends with both of them.
Right.
And actually worked for Mike in Boston, where we became close.
Right.
And I think
I don't want to.
As far as I'm concerned, no, it's hard to call anybody. As far as I'm concerned, Sam was the architect of KMET. Mike may have advised her. Mike may have given her some advice. Mike may have been part of the inner council or not. I don't know. But as far as I'm concerned, it never would have happened if we didn't have staff meetings on a Sunday night when Demento was on. We met in my house. We met at Sam's house. We made margaritas. We had guacamole. We smoked joints. We brainstormed, and the staff would come up with some of the best ideas that we had as a radio station. And that her tutelage, her ability to embrace other people's talents rather than being so controlling that it had to be only from her brain or not at all,
right,
was really what sparked the radio station to success. Mike came in as program director. It was completely different. He went into the whole KMET thing. He had his character Lucifer LaRock, which I completely disagreed with. I thought it was just a whole wrong direction.
Was that, when you mentioned that K-Rock was able to take the musical trends, was that when it happened?
I think it was happening before that, which is what caused us to suddenly try to refocus or find a new identity.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, no, it was happening before that.
I was a little bit curious who kind of made that decision.
No, I think
or was it just kind of something that happened?
Well, there was a point when to be extremely honest with you, I always felt that part of it was corporate on Metro Media's part of starting to dick with success because they didn't want to lose it by bringing in the consultants, et cetera, which would be Jim Ladd's point of view. My point of view is that we were having too much fun to watch it slipping away, that it was all part and parcel that was going on, but we were believing our own press, and we were enjoying our success, and we were getting high. It's like the line from The Last Resort in the Eagles, while the town got high.
Right.
We were just having too good a time.
So you were kind of blinded a little bit.
I think we were blinded by our own success, yes. And I remember Sam looking at the first Tom Petty album cover and thinking he was a punk rocker, so not wanting to play the music initially. Believe me, it didn't take long before we realized that this guy was, was a spirit, was what we needed more than anything. But initially, just that album cover with him in a leather jacket, it's like he's a punk. It's the Clash. We don't do that. The people don't want to hear that. I think we left a gaping opening for K-Rock. I think we allowed ourselves to become the dinosaurs, and the press was not kind.
I wasn't involved then, but
no, I know you. But even if you were, that's fine. Patrick Goldstein, who still writes for the Times, was savaged us almost every. Anytime there was a radio article, which I think he was the radio columnist at the Times at that period, just would savage us, for being dinosaurs. And
what a quick change. I mean, in a way, the musical taste changed so quickly, and what became trendy. I can see why you were blindsided to a point, because you don't want to take a chance if what you're doing is successful. You don't want to radically change. But I can see the whole thing happening. Like that.
But if you don't keep on moving, you wind up losing. And I think that we just, were kind of blindsided, not only by our success, but by the musical trends. I think that we wound up not being open enough. And then when we were, it was kind of too late, and it seemed silly. It's like there was a time when we were playing Flock of Seagulls and, and some of the Human League and some of the things that, there were good songs. I mean, the stuff that I like listening to now, but we had created, it's like suddenly wanting to introduce bacon in a kosher restaurant. It's like, you may like eating the bacon. It's like, wait a minute, what is this doing here? This is not what it's supposed to be.
Right.
Or as I used to, my analogy was always serving pizza in a Chinese restaurant. You love pizza, you love Chinese food, but the two don't belong in the same restaurant.
So you had the musical changes, and then you mentioned earlier there were staff changes that changed the dynamics a little, with Mary Turner leaving and the staff being changed up a little bit. Did that have some effect on all of this as well?
Oh, sure, because the identity wound up changing. You wound up not. Mary was a force. I mean, Mary was one of the best broadcasters ever, and the fact that she decided to, when she married Norm, she left first, but just to give it up, it's like enough, this is it, I'm done, and she was done.
Which was a shame, because some of the great broadcasts, the Springsteen interview, for example, is
monumental.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Especially in the historic context of what happened with Bruce's career and, who he is.
Sure. Sure. And I know a couple people in the Springsteen camp, and they still talk about that interview as being a pretty important interview in his career.
Yeah, well, some of it was he was trying to pick her up on the air.
Exactly.
Which is why it was so
very
cute.
clear.
Which is why it was so cute. And, and entertaining because it was so real. It wasn't like, a list of questions. It's like, so tell me, when did you first get a guitar? It was...
KMET in Los Angeles, Mary Turner, and the boss here. Your eyes kind of lit up when you heard that commercial for the amusement park.
Oh, yeah.
Are you ready?
Get out to that roller coaster.
You like roller coasters, huh?
We got into a, thing in Denver. We hit one that was, felt like it was 20 years old. It was the scariest thing I've ever been on. So we said, where do we get to California? Great America. They got one actually that goes backwards.
Backwards? I haven't seen the backwards one.
They got one. They got a picture of this guy, the guy looking scared as hell on a poster with his hair flying straight
I guess.
It's like, so I gotta make it out there.
That one I'd like to try. Is it true that you check out, you pick the places you go by where they have great amusement parks nearby?
Yeah.
Yeah?
You want a date?
Hey, let's go. Only if we sit in the front car, though. That's the important part.
All right.
Yeah, and she played along with it so well and was so on top of it.
She was, we're talking about her like she's dead. She's still very much alive and extremely successful, but we were really good friends, It's like...
Let's talk about when things were really rocking at KMET, and you had the Finally a Friday stuff going on. There was Jim Ladd in the evening getting his activism going with the paraquat spraying and all that. Now the paraquat thing
was actually Ace's idea.
That's what I thought. That generated from the morning show then, right?
Yeah.
Initially.
Yeah, Ace started with the petition drive. And I don't remember how many hundreds of thousands of signatures we accumulated, but then he took it to the, the head of to the Carter administration, to the head of the DEA, I believe, to protest that we're killing our own people. It's like, it's one thing to have laws against the use of marijuana, but we're sending this poison which takes so long to kill the plants that they can harvest it before it dies and then package it and selling it back to us. So we're basically poisoning ourselves. And that's what the whole idea was about. And that's when Pat Kelly kind of adopted the nickname Paraquat.
All right. This day in history is now history. And with us on the line, we have none other than Ace Young. Ace!
Hey, how are you doing, bro?
Cool. Feeling good, like it's, 6:01 here in Los Angeles. Now, I know you're in Washington. What time is it?
Well, I think it's 9 o'clock, bro. 9:01.
9:01.
It's a treat. I'm talking to you from my penthouse suite high atop the Sheraton Park Hotel here. And getting ready in a few minutes to go down to normal offices at 23 and M Street, 23rd and M Street, to meet Keith Stroop, who's the president of Normal. Happens to be a good friend of mine also. Then we head over to the White House, bro.
You're going to see Lee.
Your brother Lee Dogoloff, who is assistant director of the White House Drug Task Force. And we got some petitions for him, as you know.
Well, I know, and that really sounds like the hot tip. Now, does Lee know you're coming?
Lee knows we're coming. We've had an appointment. I don't know if he knows we're coming with 270,000 signatures and petitions and letters or not, But he's expecting something, and he probably knows there are a few surprises up our sleeve, because we've talked to him before on the radio, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think maybe you could give us a buzz from Lee's office?
Oh, of course, bro. We'll try to have Lee on the other line, too. I got a problem, though, Bask.
What's that?
I don't know how to tie a tie.
Well, you know how you do it. I could probably tell you right now if you want to get the tie.
You just kind of loop it over?
You loop it over. Yeah, actually, if you don't know how to tie it, I think that the latest thing now is you just staple it to your chest.
Wrap it around your neck a few times. Right?
That's the one.
So listen, it's a nice day in Washington. The weather people say a high in the mid-80s and kind of humid, which is kind of usual. Summertime on the East Coast.
Uh-huh.
But I'm excited. We're going to party today. The whole thing is a heavy number because there's so many people in Southern California involved. And we're going to drive this thing home at the White House, at Normal headquarters, and we're going by to the California delegation. People like Mr. Waxman, people, Mr. Miller, who have been so involved in the scams thing, and trying to get marijuana decriminalized back here in Washington. So we're going all around doing all of these numbers, so to speak, with all of these people, and just driving it home to the folks in Southern California.
And I'll tell you, man, those folks are from Santa Barbara to San Diego, and of course, all the fine members of Scams. They've got to be really excited about what you're doing. And that brings up an interesting point. I understand next week now there will be a vote to see if they will stop the funding. And Mr. Waxman was one of the people that authored that measure.
Absolutely. It looks like it indeed. In fact, the thing we got to point out here is that things are happening on so many fronts. Tickets, petitions and letters and loads, constitutional tests. I'm sorry, I'm just listening to the radio. Our sister station here, WASH, and the Rolling Stones were here in town last night. They were interviewing folks out in front there. I missed the concert, Bask. I'm sorry. My mind wandered there a little bit,
Yeah, I understand. But, what do you expect? That jet lag, L.A. to Washington, D.C. I mean, geez Louise, Ace.
So anyway, we got petition letters, we got constitutional tests. There's politicking going on, and sooner or later it's going to happen, I think.
Well, we just hope so. And listen, I'll tell you what, we want to hear from you again today, and I'm sure we will. Yeah. Maybe you can give us a call from Lee's office,
Mr. Dogaloff?
Sure.
Don't you like the Dogaloff?
Do it every chance I get.
Listen, Kelly, it's 6 a.m. and we're loose this morning, but seriously, I just want to let the people know this is very serious business, and we're gonna go for it today.
You got it, partner. So listen, Ace, we're going to talk to you then later on, and good luck in Washington, and listen, try to find out how to tie your tie, man.
Yeah, right. No problem. I'll ask the bellboy.
All right now. So we'll talk to you later. There it is, ladies and gentlemen. None other than Ace Young, live and direct from Washington. KMET News Time, 6:05.
And the whole station seemed to pick up on that. Now, was that a conscious effort, or was that just something that organically happened?
It organically happened, yeah. And then it may have been at one of these meetings that I talked about, where we decided to just go for it full tilt.
And the Hooya came from that as well, didn't it?
You know what? I think that came from Pat, where it was kind of like the military, and I think that it just kind of evolved from that. I'm pretty sure that's how that. I think Pat gets credit for the Hooya.
Okay,
Pat, what do you get? What do you say?
So, any other stories from the KMET days that you can share with us?
You mean that ended marriages and
ended marriages and so on?
Yeah, no, I'm not going to go into that.
How about the KLOS KMET wars? Let's talk about that, because there was some of that going on as well.
Well, there was a lot going on, and when KMET became really strong, Bill Summers, who was the general manager of KLOS for many years, was still the sales manager, I believe, and I had known him when I worked at KLOS when he was the sales manager. And they tried to hire me away. We had lunch one afternoon, and he said, I'm not here to help you get more money at KMET. Write down a figure on a piece of paper, fold it over, and give it to me. If we can pay you that, then it's a done deal. And there was really no amount of money that I wanted to leave KMET. So I just said, thanks for lunch, Bill. And he said, I thought so, but we had to try. And that was that. Ladd and I talked several years ago now, about that in terms of making money in the business, that we were like the Roger Maris and Mickey Mantle and Willie Mays and people of that generation that really didn't make a whole lot of money doing it.
Right.
I mean, we got paid well, but not like the Rick Dees and the Ryan Seacrest multi-million-dollar contracts that ensued in the next wave. Not so much Ryan, but I mean even before Ryan, just the next wave of disc jockeys where people, Mark and Brian, were making $1 million contracts. They were definitely high five-figure salaries. And, we did well for the time because the cost of living was less. But we were doing it because we loved it.
I was going to say that example that you gave with Bill Summers shows that there was no amount of money that you were gonna give into to leave that fun.
I couldn't have imagined if he had said, "We'll give you $1 million." I probably would have said, "When do I start?" But we still weren't talking about that kind of money,
right? Exactly.
And I didn't want to leave the team. I felt that and that was the other problem. The success was the problem was that we felt like we owned it, and you never own a radio station. Now you can, you do, but but then you were hired. It's like a baseball team or a football basketball team. As much as you're part of that team and that successful team, time comes when maybe they don't want you anymore. I mean, Mary left while she was on top. Ladd's been fired many times. I've been fired many times. Ace has been fired. Sometimes it's our own doing. Sometimes it's completely unjustified.
Right.
But
so you were not there at the very end of KMET then?
I was not. I was married. My wife was pregnant with our first. I'm not married to this woman now. I haven't been for a long time, but she was pregnant with our first child. The severance was running out. Ace was in Miami. Said, "This is great." This is the only time Ace ever lied to me. He said, "Miami was great." Sucks. I hate it. Anyway, so I started talking to people at this radio station in Miami, and they teamed Ace up. They teamed us. It didn't work, but they teamed us there. So we moved to Miami, and I spent the 3 years that I was there trying to get a job out of there because I just didn't. I just was not a big fan of South Florida, and the heat, the humidity, the culture. It was just not for me. And so Mike Harrison was the program director of WZLX in Boston, which was a classic rock station. And as soon as he got the job, I got in touch with him, and one thing led to another. And he teamed me up with Alan Combs, who worked with Sean Hannity.
Wow.
Alan was out of work, and I was out of work, and he was trying to create this kind of news-ish music kind of morning show, which was great on paper, but Alan was not the biggest music fan in the world and didn't quite understand a music radio station, and so that ultimately didn't work out very well. But Alan and I worked together for about 6 months. We did a morning show together.
That's fantastic.
Which was fun.
I wasn't aware of that part of your history.
But Boston was good. I loved being there. I loved living there. I loved being on the air there. It's smaller city that is not completely overwhelmed by the show business, movie, television industry. So you, as people on the radio and the sports figures, are the stars in the market. So people immediately, they start, for better or for worse, start writing about you in the gossip columns, which was not so good. I found out I was getting fired in a gossip column in the Boston Herald.
Was it true?
Yes. Gonzer and Annalisa, both on life support at WZLX. I'm sitting on the subway on the way to work, and the Herald is a tabloid, so it's like I'm sitting there in the middle of all these people, and I'm kind of reading the column, and it's like I started shaking. It
must have been great show prep.
Oh my God! Immediately walked into the general manager's office. No, it's not true. Of course, it was. It happened a couple of weeks later, but.
So from Boston, where were you off to? And had the time trying to coordinate the timeline.
That was 1993 that I left Boston.
And KMET went off the air what year?
1987.
Okay, so this was
Valentine's Day.
This was
87,
long, long after they were gone.
Yeah.
Okay, so Boston, and then on to where?
Well, we came back to L.A. and I was talking to Andy Bloom at WZLX at KLSX, and I didn't want to come back until I had a full-time job. And then I just thought, this is crazy. I'm going to run out of money and wind up getting a job on the East Coast when what I really want to do is come back home. So we put everything in storage, and we moved back to L.A. and rented a house. And I started working part-time at KLSX, and then he installed me as the morning host of the local segments on Howard's show.
Yeah.
So I was doing the local segments. And I used to say to people that for 7 years, I only prayed every day to come back to L.A. to be on in the mornings. The next time I'm going to be more specific in my prayer. Because there I was, it's like I was doing this little 1-minute news,
Right.
like this little sports and weather and stuff, and then going into 12 minutes of commercials and going back to Howard. And I always understood the role, but it was also, a steady paycheck, and I was happy to have it. Then I did.
But creatively, it had to be completely frustrating.
There was nothing happening.
Yeah.
And I did weekends too for them. And then I did a fill-in show on KFI because I was really pursuing talk radio at the time, and that didn't quite happen.
Did it not feel good to you?
No,
or?
it felt good to me. It didn't feel good to them.
Right.
But so I did one show for Chief Gates, the chief.
Oh, sure.
I filled in one night, and the switchboard was lighting up, and everything felt good. But it just, David Hall, who remained a friend.
Sure.
But it just wasn't right for him, which I understand because I was a program director for many years at Westwood One and Dial Global. So I understand that sometimes things just don't feel good to you as the person doing the hiring.
Sure.
And yet he thought Chief Gates felt good. That's weird.
And then from there, was it off to KSCA?
Yeah. I really wanted to get it. I didn't like the environment or my role at KLSX at all. And so when KSCA was on the air, I really kind of saw that as a new beginning and a new sound, and I pushed really hard and wound up becoming like the sixth man on the bench. I had 3 weekend shows. We started the weekend on Friday because Mike Morrison, who is the program director, is a really good guy, and I would fill in for him on Fridays and then do a Saturday and a Sunday show. And that was a great radio station. It really just never had the time or attention or the backing that it really deserved.
And that was owned by Gene Autry.
It was his last property. And I don't know if Gene may have passed away, and it was the last property that Jackie, his wife, still held on to. It hadn't actually sold it yet. It wound up obviously selling, but which is when the station went off the air. It became a Spanish language station.
Right.
But the people, the musicians that came through, the live music and the interviews that we did were some of the great moments that I remember experiencing. The Brian Setzer Orchestra, like out in the hall. We couldn't fit the whole orchestra. It's like they were in this little broadcast studio about the size of yours, and then they like filtered up the hall and outside into just to get the whole orchestra and mic them. And it was a really good radio station.
So who else was on the KSCA staff? Nicole Sandler?
Nicole was
and Mike actually was
on the air. And Mimi Chen did evenings. She does weekends now at the Sound.
Right.
And I know that there are other people that I'm forgetting.
So my records show that was the last terrestrial job for you here in L.A. at least.
Except for the Sound. Which I kind of did for a very short period of time.
Well, you organized the KMET reunion.
I did.
Which we talked about earlier.
Finally, a KMET Friday. KMET is a place to be. Follow music on your radio. On 100.3, The Sound.
It's 6 o'clock and 45 seconds, 94.7. We're KMET Los Angeles. Good morning. I'm Ace Young. Surviving a Hooyah Monday. Welcome ourselves to a titillating Tuesday, August 18, 1981.
How you be doing this
Time,
morning?
Ace, time out. Wait.
Plenty of Z's last
Wait.
night.
Wait.
1856, the U.S. Patent Office approving...
1981?
Yeah.
Are you out of your mind?
What do you mean?
It's 2009. It's July 10th.
Come
What
to
is
think
this,
about it.
The
Come to think
Dharma
about it.
Initiative? I mean, what?
We lost a few years here. What happened?
Is this a parallel universe? What do you mean 1981?
What can I say? I don't know. Just, I think it's finally a Friday.
I know it's finally a Friday. It's so good to see you, and we really have to thank 100.3 The Sound for really allowing us to bring back KMET.
I can't believe we're doing this.
I know.
Of course, we'll need to say that at the end of the day, too. It's going to be kind of a wild day.
You know, the funny thing is that people probably would think that we stay in constant touch. We actually hate each other. No, I'm only kidding.
Come on.
We haven't talked in, I don't know, 15 years, something like that.
It's been a while.
But, you got the old Rolodex, and
We got news, views, sports, and scholar quiz, and the surf report.
And we're streaming live, of course, and we're also, the webcam is up. So if you've got the camera, if you got your computer on, you can watch us. In fact, you should have worn something more camera ready. Shirt. Go change your shirt.
This cowboy shirts.
Yeah, exactly. How about the Rolling Stones? It's finally at KMET Friday on 100.3 The Sound.
How fulfilling was that to get that together and get everybody back together?
It was bittersweet because I really thought that I was building for something bigger and grander at that radio station, and it was just not meant to be. But the actual experience, at first I was doubting about it to Dave Beasing, because I really didn't, like I said when Ace was on, all this time ago, I didn't think that really you could recreate the past. But as I was able to gather sound from different sources and start to map out the way we were going to do it and making calls. And it's interesting because at first Ladd was really excited, and then, KLOS stepped in and they freaked out. There was no way they were going to let him do it.
Finally, a KMET Friday on 100.3 The Sound. I'm Rick Scarry, and I remember that band. Weren't they named for some way you got in and out of the house?
That was Jim Ladd's house band.
Oh, I see.
What happened on that one?
That is David Perry, who just stumbled in and took the seat next to me for some reason.
Come on, listen, I'm in good shape. I stumbled last night.
Oh, that was you. Yes, that goes without saying.
Listen, there's something we have to talk. Jeff talked about this earlier, and I think that we still have a part of the family that's not here. Yeah, we got Denise. Right?
Mm-hmm.
We got Jim Ladd, Cynthia Fox, Bob Coburn. And it is time now for us to get on the phones and call KLOS and have them release the KMET-4.
Whoa, wait a minute.
KMET-4, they shall not be held bondage any longer. You like it?
See, we've already launched a cause. This is amazing. Only back on the air for about 5 hours now, and we've got a cause already. This is good. I like this.
I'm really proud of it. It was my first break.
Yeah. And you were pretty good.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Did you used to be on the radio?
I did.
Okay.
In fact, for a few times. We want them to release them so that they can come on, at least call us up and say hi on the air. So if you're listening over there, Mr. What's his name? Buttman.
Oh, what?
He said Buttman.
Okay. I
didn't know. I asked what his name was. Someone told me. I didn't. Not responsible.
Hey, no fun. Man.
Okay, now
stop
listen.
it right now.
No, but see, what we want to do is we want to have them released before we have to give out the phone numbers.
Okay.
Because that's coming. We don't want to.
Oh, wow.
We were forced to do that with Paraquat, the Paraquat situation. We had to give out the White House phone number.
That's and they called me back 2 or 3 times. But anyway. Okay, and the cause is underway. So
right,
those of you listening, take your lead from that.
Call them, please, and let us know how it goes.
I always thought that was really bizarre of them.
It would have actually shown a lot of class on their part. And then they did that silly disc jockeys of L.A.
Yeah, Legends of Radio Weekend, yeah.
And then they lured poor Pat Kelly away from working with us because they kind of dangled a show in front of his face, and that never happened. And I think that was really sad because I think it was disingenuous. But so Pat didn't work with us. So basically, we had to tell the story as I saw it with sound and the people that we could make available. And they paid for Jack Snyder to come in, which I thought was, I said to him, if you don't pay for Jack, we should cancel this thing, because if we don't have Jack, we don't have shit here at this point.
Still a lot more to come here on this Finally a KMET Friday on 100.3 The Sound. I'll be with you till 7 o'clock tonight. Then Dr. Domeno is going to be bringing his own personal style of wackiness onto the air.
He's just on fire.
What do you think chances are he'll Pico and Sepulveda?
I think it's about at 100%.
I hope so.
He dressed for radio, too.
He
Did you
does.
see it? He got the whole
always,
regalia on?
Well, he knows that we're streaming on the web, so he just wanted everybody to see his outfit.
He always dresses like that.
He's great.
And coming up after that, a very special surprise starting at 8 o'clock tonight. Were you going to tell us what that was?
Tell us.
Can we divulge it?
I can't.
No?
I can't.
Jeff, tell us. Come on.
No, I can't.
All right.
Well,
but
anyway.
You should be born to run to your radio to listen to it, because it's going to be something special.
Don't be hiding out on the back streets.
Okay. In fact,
in the pink Cadillac.
if you're going out in the pink Cadillac, you should bring Rosalita with you.
All right.
Sounds
okay?
good to me.
Enough
Finally,
said.
a KMET Friday on 100.3 The Sound.
So we had Ace and me and Jack, and then and then the other people, David Perry came in.
Rick Scarry.
And Rick Scarry was great, and it was just so good to have Rick. And then Sam, it was almost like a This Is Your Life, Sam Bellamy. And you were there. It just really, and then
it was
a lot
almost
of
magical.
It did. It was, and a lot of the supporting players and Raul, Phil Gonzalez was working for CBS at the time, so they wound up covering Channel 2 and Channel 9, so we had news coverage, and it was, it wound up becoming more than I thought and greater than the sum of its parts, which I think happens when things take off.
And the interesting part to me is it wasn't really a recreation, as it turned out. It was more of a big celebration with sound.
That's the only way that I thought that it was going to work, was if we kind of produced it as a living documentary, rather than trying to redo KMET, because that never was going to work.
I still get emails on that.
Really?
Yes.
It was it was good, and what Dave decided to do after that, I don't know if it was up to Dave or whoever, but it just, that was that. It was just a one-day event.
And you had hopes that it would go beyond that.
I had hopes that I would have gone beyond that.
Right.
I don't know.
Well, I know.
Whether it was
I was actually pushing Dave to put on KMET as an HD2 channel.
Well, that's you and I had discussed that, Richard.
I know, and I had talked to him about that too. It was like, we can do it. We can do it inexpensively. We can do it. I can do it from my house. It's like, but it just never. It never materialized. The reason I started working with the sound was that my 14 years with Westwood One / then Dial Global ended. Okay. And I was the program director of, we called it adult rock, and I tried to grow the classic rock format over the years. And I was there for, I think, about 14 years. I was a program director for about 12 and a half, something like that.
How was that experience?
I loved it.
Yeah.
I loved it. I loved the chance of, again, to make another baseball analogy, when a player is done and they wind up being a manager, you have all those skills and all of that knowledge the way you've always wanted to do it if you were the boss.
Right.
And I had a chance to do that. And, I try to nurture talent. I tried to let people be good on their terms, and if I didn't like the way they were good, then then if it didn't work out, then they weren't there. But I wanted people to succeed on their own, not
sure.
And musically, it was you have a bunch of affiliates across the country that are small radio stations for the most part. And you are their radio station, or they do some local day parts, and So it was good. But then through the transition from Westwood One to Dial Global, and different people came in, and Dial Global started growing it. And then they bought Jones Broadcasting in Denver, which was actually a bigger entity, but Dial Global's backing financially was bigger. So they wound up buying Jones and incorporating the companies. And there was just a bunch of redundancies, and I became a redundant. So that's when I started talking to Dave, and that's when we started, working for the Sound. But I was on the Sound, it was like twice a week for 3 hours at a time, or not twice a week, twice a month for like 3 hours on a Sunday. It just seemed crazy. So I just said, with all due respect, I just don't want to do this anymore.
Right.
And then and I've been doing shows for the High Desert Broadcasting in Palmdale for years from my house, tracking a classic rock show for the Quake, and started doing a morning show for their K-Earth for their oldies channel. And when my wife and I decided to retire and decided to sell our house, which happened a lot faster than we thought it would, we're moving to La Jolla. So, I gave them notice, and I just was looking at Facebook over the weekend and just thought, I think I'm going to say something. We've been sitting here talking about me for 2 hours, so it's like, so it's hard for me to say I don't like talking about myself.
That's why you're here.
I was just trying, I just thought, does anybody really give a shit? And then I thought, well, I give a shit. I've got about 1,500 friends on from Facebook, so I think I'll say something.
Well, I think it's deeper than that, and I think it doesn't just apply to you. It applies to pretty much anybody that has spent any time on the radio. There is you become, as a listener, part of that person's family, part of that person's being, listening day after day after day. I know that in college, my alarm would go off and I would hear you do the wake up thing every morning. And that was part of my life for several years. And I think that, to say that no one gives a shit is not fair to what you have accomplished. And not just you, anybody that spent any length of time on the radio. It's because these people that are on the radio become part of people's lives.
Don't you think that it's really changed tremendously over the years, or is it just that I'm no longer part of it, so I don't see it anymore?
Oh, it's totally changed.
It's totally changed, and that was going to be my next question. How do you perceive radio now?
I listen to the Spectrum on XM. It's like their AAA channel.
Right.
I listen to that. I listen to Deep Track. Sometimes I listen to Jim. If I'm around, I listen mostly in the car, but if I'm around, I'll listen to Jim on Deep Tracks. I'll listen to the Springsteen channel. As far as I'm concerned, that's where the medium has gone. I don't mind paying whatever it is, $12 a month.
Well, you're almost forced to now.
Yeah.
And one of the big changes, this is the big change for me comparing the KMET era, actually even any of the stations from that era, whether they were album rock or top 40 or K-Rock.
There were great top 40 stations.
They treated the listener with respect. And I saw that when I was at the reunion over at the Sound, where you would do newscasts, and you brought up, this is such a stupid little thing to me, but when they did the newscast and they ended with the old tagline, now you're informed, right? How did it go?
Yeah. KMET rocks.
KMET informed Southern California. Now KMET rocks Southern California.
Here's Jeff Gonzer. That's what Ace would say. Yeah.
There was a lot of respect for the audience back then, and they treated you as if you were an intelligent being and wanted to know something. And the paraquat thing, I wasn't a smoker, but I knew all about it and knew how stupid it was to spray that on. And I got that from the respect that you showed me saying that. And you don't see that with a lot of stations anymore.
Well, you can be for gay marriage without being gay. I mean, you can just see a wide scope of what's going on. We always felt that the audience was as much a part of it as we were, that it was like we were just like one giant community, which is something that social media has taken over that's no longer, I think, available to radio as a medium. Even so, I don't know if anybody could create that. I don't think anybody cares who listens to radio. It's just moved on. It's like AM moving to FM. You know, AM had to change what it did when it became largely spoken word,
right,
and foreign language broadcast back when FM exploded in the early 70s. And now FM is finding what it can do. Even Clear Channel, you know, the iHeartRadio is becoming a tremendous part of their broadcast and a very important part of what they do, because there's so many people listen to the radio on your smartphone, in the car, whatever.
I just find it ironic that a lot of the supporters of radio, and I'm a big supporter of radio, and
obviously,
they're always talking about how radio is so local, and you really don't get that anymore. There isn't a lot of localism in radio, and that's to me the sad part.
That's true, and they always want you to be local, and that's something that's always being pushed even inside. But yet, you know, what's local? I mean, you do a traffic report, that's local. You know, you talk about Harbor Boulevard being backed up to the 110. I mean, that's local, but that's not. You don't feel the essence of what's going on in a community.
I think at KMET you did feel.
Yeah, I'm talking about now.
Yeah, you didn't talk necessarily about local events. You did, of course, but there was a local mentality to the
yes, and that's
the entire presentation.
It's the essence that we're talking about.
That's right.
And that's where the close relationships come in, and that's why people they really did think of you as part of the family.
Yeah, and we thought of them as part of the family because we understood. And it wasn't contrived. It wasn't, you know, we've got to placate these people, or we know what side of the bread the butter is on, or anything. It was just, you know, we felt like it was just this whole big thing that we were like thrilled, proud, you know, excited. I mean, nobody doesn't love success. I mean, it felt great, but yet we understood that it was almost like a Pied Piper kind of a thing, that we were just kind of like all in this thing together. When we started losing it is when the panic set in, and, you know, you don't know quite how to turn.
But I think what you've seen on your Facebook page over the last couple of days, the outpouring on your retirement,
just blew my mind. Just blew my mind. Still does. I mean, people are still writing stuff, and it's just so surprising and just so gratifying. And having you ask me to come and do this is extremely gratifying, because I haven't been really doing terrestrial radio, especially in LA, for some time, and you know, doing it from the house, tracking shows for Palmdale, you don't even, you know, Palmdale's part of LA, but you don't really feel it because you're doing it from your house. You know, I'm sitting in Studio City doing a show, you know, talking about that it's so hot it's unbearable, but still, no, I'm not there. I don't know that it's really that way. I'm just looking at a weather forecast.
Yeah, but you can see KMET's been off the air for almost 30 years.
And there's still a love for it, you know, but
and you're part of that, obviously.
Obviously, and I really respect that, and you know, it was a very important part of my life, and what's so gratifying is to see how important it was to so many people.
I as you know, I teach high school over at San Pedro High. There's still kids that have KMET bumper stickers. I have no idea where they get them.
I would say their
parents. Probably.
Well, Jeff, again, many, many thanks. You're one of my radio heroes, and I'm just honored that you came down and did this with
Michael,
us.
Richard, I appreciate it.
It's hate to see you retire. I'm not completely, totally convinced that this is a retirement. But, Elton
Hey,
John
still-
retired a bunch of times.
My wife might be listening.
Yeah, and there's other people that have retired.
He's
so,
moving down toward that KGB.
I talked about that before we went on the air.
Actually, I would rather, if I was gonna resurrect a career on any level, I'd rather do it at KPRI than, which is.
Well, we all know people there. I'm gonna do some lobbying.
Yeah, call Haley. Tell her that I'm on my way.
But I don't believe this retirement for a second, Jeff. But assuming that it is real, we appreciate you coming down. And honestly, hate to see you leave L.A.
Well, how do you miss me if I don't go away?
That's right.
All right, man. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Oh, boy, what a finally a Friday. Thursday, it's happening. 9:52 in the morning, and some Devo. We're getting ready to say goodbye, We are going to turn things over in just a few minutes to Cynthia Fox back at the studio. And Cynthia and everybody through the day will be debuting these brand new Finally a Friday t-shirts, the ones that our contestants were wearing when we hit them with all that plain wrap champagne. And we're going to be giving away through the day from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. as many Finally a Friday t-shirts as we can give away.
Over here.
Is my Arco card good at a Shell station? Well, it's because Arco doesn't sell gas as credit cards anymore. They don't use the
It's cash only.
Cash only.
Wow.
Just like here, no credit cards.
Yep.
Ace, this is it for another fun. Do you believe this one?
I can't believe it. Tell me, if today was a Finally a Friday on a Thursday, do we have tomorrow off or do we have to come in?
Tomorrow is officially a Finally a Friday 2.
Jeez, 2 days in a row.
So, on behalf of Ace Young and myself and Flo and
Eddie.
Thank you. Thank you, Ace.
April Fools, everybody!
We'll do it again.
Do you know that Flo and Eddie were the Turtles back in the mid-'60s? I don't want to...
When you were just a child,
When we were all
Gonzer.
just childs, Gonzer.
Ace, you're my dad, so it doesn't matter.
I heard about what happened in the White House.
No.
I know.
No.
So we're going to finish off with Happy Together. We're all going to sing Happy Together. Together.
Can we do that?
You ready, guys? Mark, we need you. We're happening. Okay, hit it. Let's go.
Okay.
Can I join you guys?
Sure, sing along, Jeff. Come on, Jeff.
I can't wait.
Imagine me and you, I do. I think about today and night. It's only right to think about the girl you love and hold her tight. Wow. So happy together. No, Jeffrey, no, it's lower than that. If I should call you up, invest a dime, and you say you belong to me.
Singing on the radio.
And he's my mind. Imagine how the world could be. So happy together. Why are they rioting like this? You April Fools out there! I can't see me loving nobody but you for all my life. Gingy! Gingy. We said Gingy. You said Gingy? For all my life. And you and me, no matter how they toss the dice. Andy Kahn, ladies and gentlemen. And you for me, so happy together. Here's who y'all go, Sam, this was not my idea, Sam. Howard and I wanted to do a real show, Sam. Mr. Bloom, we're sorry. Sam, this was not our idea. This is Jeff. Jeff, this was our idea. Come on, Gonzer. Come on, Jeff Gonzer. Come on, let's hear it for Jeff. Jeff Gonzer! Ace Young, all right! Jeff Gonzer! Yeah! When is this over anyway? Very soon. So tell me, how's the weather? It's coming right up. Here's the line. And how is the weather? So happy together. Thank you. Happy Fool's Day. I like Joe Walsh. Oh, more wet t-shirts. Yeah.